What is good, guys? Dumb shit Matt in the house.
I'm here.
Cooper is here as well.
Here I am.
He's hiding inside his his top secret off-grid vacation home. Moldy Apple says, it asked me if I'm satisfied with this notification. I said, very. Well, you see, that's what we're here for. We are here to provide you with very satisfaction. Hey, there we go. That's what I was looking for.
Very satisfied.
This song's grooving.
Some honeycomb.
Ooh.
And some milk.
That goes well with your whole off-grid shtick there. Oh, you got rid of it. Oh, what is up? Magoo is here.
In the bunker.
You're in the bunker?
I'm in the bunker.
Xavier says that honeycomb slaps. No cap. For real. All right, let me go tell the good people of Twitter that we're now live. That's funny. The first tweet that I saw was a tweet from a certain someone we're going to talk about tonight. That's funny. Tease you guys a little bit.
Lyle is here.
Hey, it's Lyle.
Hey, Lyle.
What's going on, Lyle? Long time no see. Here in the YouTube streets. Okay, I think I've got everything set up now. I've got all the windows where they need to be. We're going to do some screen sharing on the show tonight. This ought to be a fun one. Cooper and I cooked up this little scheme this afternoon. We were trying to figure out exactly what we wanted to talk about tonight on the show. And then this kind of just arrived. I don't remember exactly how we came across it. We'll probably put it back.
The divine muse.
Yeah. Yes. We're going to introduce you guys to a new term tonight. And the reason we know it's new is because we just made it up. It's GOONUCHS. What is a GOONUCH?
GOONUCH.
Well, to find out, you will have to stay for a little while and listen to some other things. Xavier says, make sure to turn that shiz off when you commentate. It's killing me to edit every single short. we need to talk about that. We'll talk about that.
Leave it on.
Yeah, just leave it on. In this case, I don't think we're going to have any audio. It's just going to be, I'm going to screen share some tweets so you guys can, so I can commentate on those. I don't think we're going to do any audio. So you're free, Xavier. Actually, I guess maybe I wonder if it would make a difference. Is it like gonna grab onto the face in like the Twitter avatar or something and screw everything up? Anyways,
no, I think he's talking about the music.
Oh yeah, I forgot we had music going. This one's good. Like this one just kind of is really nice, just existing there in the back, and it's very unobtrusive. You can't hear the loop in it very well.
Oh no, he's not talking about the music. He's talking about the Twitter.
Oh,
whatever.
All right. Well, whatever. Yeah. We got other problems to deal with that are bigger. So yeah, we're gonna describe to you guys what a GOONUCH is, and it's a very particular thing. We've decided we want to pick a fight with someone, maybe a few different someones, and GOONUCH is the best way to. Xavier's dying, and GOONUCH is the best way to pick that fight, I think. But I think that this is a term. One of the great things about coming up with neologisms like this is that it points at, like a word is, we've talked about mouth sounds and mind pictures on the show in the past, and a word is just a mouth sound that corresponds to a mind picture. But sometimes if you don't have a mouth sound for that particular mind picture doesn't exist. You can't picture that thing in your mind. Or if you do, it's hard to hold on to it because you don't have a term that encapsulates it. But if you come up with a term that encapsulates it, then suddenly it reifies that thing. And now you can look at it and examine it and talk about it and discuss its implications and all that sort of thing. So tonight we are identifying a particular phenomenon among a particular segment of, we'll say the online, extremely online right wing that we are identifying as GOONUCHS. If you guys know your shit, even just a little, just kind of the slightest bit between the title and the term GOONUCH, you can probably sort of piece together some of where we're going. But hopefully it's original enough that it sticks and becomes something you guys can use in the future.
And
Obviously,
mind you, we're not just picking a fight with this particular person because this is the only Goonuk. They are just
right.
they are the avatar and
Uh-huh.
avatar of
Yeah.
Goonukry.
Or at least in this particular instance. And this is the sort. Yeah, well, anyway, we'll get into it.
Goonicosity, Goonukry.
Goonukry. I like the way. I think that would look good. I think visually it would lay out well. Goonukry. Goonuchry. Goonukry. Yeah. Like, hey, you there! Stop your Goonukry. It's useful. On the GOONUCHS and their lies. Obviously, this is a reference to a book by Martin Luther, and I think one thing we need to come up with. We'll get to that once we might have to do a little side quest once we get
This
to
whole
a certain
show is
point.
just going to be us saying, "We'll get to that. We'll get to that."
Yeah, that'd be really
Never
funny
getting
to
to
do a
it.
show like that. We'll get to it. We're almost there.
Never deliver.
Yeah.
Blue ball them.
So where I want to start with this is this particular. Oh well, I think I accidentally closed that. Oh no, here it is. So there's a video here from Barry Weiss, and we're not going to play the actual video. We're just going to look at the commentary on it, because the commentary on it is coming from the Free Press, a publication called the Free Press, which is a publication that was founded by Barry Weiss. So what they're tweeting about it, they're essentially summarizing what she's saying. This is funny. Thomas Review says, blue balling your audience while talking about gooning. Ironic. Look at us. Look at our irony. So she's giving this speech and she's being Barry Weiss. And it says, anti-Semitism is never about the Jews. It's a warning system. It's a sign that the society itself is breaking down, that it is dying. It is a symptom of a much deeper crisis. And this is one of those things that just made me stop scrolling for a second and sit there and think about it. Like the absolute balls on these people, the sheer hubris to suggest that opposition to a certain class of people is, or rather, that support of a certain class of people is equivalent to society. If the sign that the society itself is breaking down and dying, if the society is dying because people don't like this particular class of people, you're saying then that this particular class of people is like biologically essential for the existence of society. That's like the only thing that you could really conclude from this. This is a preposterous, absolutely preposterous, absurd claim that she's making. There was other implicit admissions in this. I wrote here in the tweet for the people who are listening. I'll read off the tweet. It says, the key to the health, I'm essentially summarizing or like quoting her. The key to the health of your society is loving Jews. My answer is, why does our stability depend upon you? What are you getting at here? If you don't love us, your society will collapse. Huh. I wonder why and how. This is starting to sound like a threat. The purpose of your society is to sustain and promote our interests. Oh, or what? This is this is what they call like laying, like pulling the mask away, like laying it bare. They're becoming very bold in the way that they're talking about this. They're starting to make it really, really evident. But there's a particular pattern here that this is following in the footsteps of. I think someone mentioned it in the comments. Yeah, this guy here. He says, looks like anti-Semitism is a racism of 2023. Everything's blamed on it, and everyone except few are guilty of it. And that guilt is taken away by donating money, time, and power to those few. So this is like an age-old scheme at this point. People are very aware of this scheme. It's almost boomerish to kind of to like bring up this scheme and talk about it. But I want to bring it up in this particular case for a particular reason. So this is like the victimhood scheme where you create a victim class, and then you say everyone is not part of that victim class is responsible for the victim class, and then everyone, in order to atone for your evils you've committed against the victim class, you need to donate money, time, energy to that class. And it's used obviously to pick apart a society. You wedge it in, and you it's like a divide and conquer strategy. Now, we've seen this used quite a few times recently. It's been being used more and more and more toward different groups. As I was starting to think about this, I was going back thinking, like, okay, how far could we go back to where we find one of the first really clear instances of this particular use of this technique? And I think you can make a case for various instances further back, but I think the most prominent version of it was the feminist movement, the original feminist movement, and like the effort to expand suffrage for women. I think that's where you first see this. And it kind of makes sense. Like if you're looking at a body of people and you're like, all right, how are we going to split them apart? Let's take one of the broadest subsets of it. So like basically, if you're trying to divide, like the largest minority group that you could get would be women. So let's target the largest minority group and see if we can just split it straight in half. So the largest minority group is women. So that's the one that gets targeted, and they use the technique on women. Then it works phenomenally. So they're okay, well, what's the next group that we're going to expand this onto? And there's different sort of iterations of this, but I think there's one thread in common where it's been used for particular identities. I think the first one was women. The second one was the Civil Rights Act. Then you kind of saw this sort of trying to be used after 9/11 for Muslims. And it kind of had its spurts, and it went for a little bit, but it kind of died off. It didn't really last that well. The vestiges of it are kind of, they remain sort of in like the academic activist kind of type, where they'll lump in like Palestinians or something, or brown people as oppressed. But the like explicit treatment of Muslims as victims kind of disappeared pretty shortly after it came up.
Kyle's correcting you, and not Lyle, Kyle. Aren't women technically the majority? I get the point, though. I was also going to say that, like, isn't that kind of like 50-50?
I guess it depends on what,
Matt.
It depends on what you're measuring. Are you measuring exact numbers of people, or are you measuring against societal influence? So like men are, yeah. So it's the majority of power. Women is a very powerful demographic, as is evident by goings on of late. Women is a very powerful demographic, but at the point where you're trying to divide the two up, you would probably start with, before trying to niche down into like religion or race or nationality or sexual preference.
Somebody who's been victimized.
Right. Yeah.
Victimized or oppressed.
Right. So they pick this particular minority, and it works fantastically, in part because this is like one of the most fundamental minorities is the woman. So they go for that. They go for the root. They subvert the relationship between men and women on this basis, using this victimhood strategy. Then they use it for the Civil Rights Act. So now they're subsetting things down even further. Then you saw this start to go on overdrive after, like, with the rise of BLM and Gamergate, and the effect that those things had both on academia and on the broader culture, the arts and the cultures and everything. They're using the same method. They're refining it over and over again. And I'm sure that most people who are listening to us at this point are well aware that this isn't just some pattern that just happens to exist out there that people just stumbled upon. There's a particular group of people that you will find littered all throughout all of the activism and everything that goes into making this victimhood economy churn. It's very obvious. We're not breaking news here to you guys. My question is, and this isn't necessarily, this question here is maybe one we just sort of leave and we talk about it at another point, but it'll segue us into the rest of the conversation. My question is, why now? If we accept the premise that this particular group of people is involved in running the victimhood economy, you might call them like victimhood merchants. If these victimhood merchants have such a good thing that's working so well and it's so effective, why use it on themselves now? Because there's broadly two groups of people that their take on this. You have we'll call just like the white pill perspective and the black pill perspective. And the black pill perspective says, oh, this is just another one of their schemes, and they're bringing it in to do they're bringing it in to execute whatever thing in the Middle East or whatnot. Then the white pill perspective, which is more what I would share, is why are they doing this now? If they've like taken so much ground, if they've advanced so far, they're so entrenched in their power, why does it feel like this is not a planned thing? This feels like it's a nuclear option. It feels like all of the noticing that's going on lately, all of this like Barry Weiss releasing this particular category of like pleading, rationalizing, emotionalizing thing, really just looking it in the eye. Why is this happening now? This doesn't strike me as the product of a grand orchestrated plan. It strikes me as people genuinely panicking. They're scurrying as the light comes upon them. They're scurrying into the corners and trying to beg and plead with people to listen to them. That's the I guess the question. We'll just kind of put a pin in it. We can come back to this later on, like the white pilled versus black pilled perspective on the developments of late and maybe Elon's tussles with the ADL and all that sort of thing. We can pick that up later. Do you have any other related thoughts on that, Cooper?
No, dude, let's goon. I mean, go.
All right, so time to goon. So as Cooper and I were talking this afternoon, it occurred to us that this pattern, this weaponized pattern that is used, you can pick this pattern up all over the place, and it's very clearly weaponized by people. Cooper was complaining that he hates this pattern. He just particularly chaps his ass to see people doing this, weaponizing the victimhood thing. It just grinds his gears. Did you have any further thoughts on that?
Well, this is where we're going, but it particularly bothers me when those who would dub themselves right wing employ this pattern. That's what I find particularly annoying. Like, I don't care what lefties do; they're going to do that. That's what they do. But when quote, our guys do this, and they do it a lot, it's kind of gay.
Yes, very much so. That's exactly where we were going. So there is another tweet out here that I saw this yesterday, and I thought, man, this is one of the best tweets I've ever seen. This is absolutely fantastic. Fisher King on Twitter, Fisher King at FisherKing64, said right-wing normies have absorbed left-wing morality, identified the hypocrisy in sex relations, and then tried to make men victims of sexual assault as some kind of strategic move. And they seem to believe it. This level of stupidity is hard to fathom. Just live in reality and win that way. This just absolutely unlocked all kinds of thoughts in my head. He has absolutely frickin' nailed it. And this characterizes, he talked about this as right-wing normies. But the thing is, right-wing normies don't have original thoughts. That's why they're normies. They don't come up with these ideas themselves. These ideas are passed down to them by their intellectual superiors who tell them what to think and believe. This is just the way that every society functions this way. You have your priest class that tells people what to think and how to believe, and then the people go and dutifully do that and repeat whatever they've been told. So the reason the right-wing normies have done this, they've absorbed left-wing morality and identified the hypocrisy in sex relations, is because they've been conditioned to do this by the people who are smarter than them. And it's the people who are smarter than them that our beef is with. So I guess to kind of unpack the analogy a little bit, just to make sure everybody's keeping up, what he's saying here is that the right-wing normies, they've taken this left-wing morality, and then what they're observing is they have this, it's kind of like the gynocentrism. Even the normies at this point kind of recognize this fundamental unfairness in the way that men and women are treated in the society. It's not right that women have it easier. There's social programs for women that there aren't for men, or it's easier to be a woman. All this stuff that you see, the kind of the toxic back and forth in the sex relationships. The role that right-wing normies are playing is saying essentially like, we're the aggrieved ones. We're the victims of the women in this case. Probably one of the most prominent examples of this is the pickup artist, the whole pickup artist scene, where they whine and complain about a gynocentric society, and it spins off into incels and then the MGTOW guys. These are all they're just kind of like whiny, pathetic dudes who, on one hand, will say that women have no agency, and on the flip side, that society is structured for the sake of women and it's women's fault. Like, how do you possibly hold those two thoughts in your head at the same time? If women don't have agency and you don't like the way that society is structured, your beef is not with women. How do these ideas not connect for you?
Impotence.
Yes, it's pure impotence signaling. Just pure impotence signaling. It's guys advertising the right-wing normies advertising themselves as victims of sexual assault at like the society level. They're saying that women are assaulting men. And you've seen this leak into the, I guess you call it the dissident right, which is really where a lot of these ideas come from. Like, the ideation begins in circles kind of like what you might call the dissident right now. All the stuff that's out on the fringes, because the people who are out on the fringes are the ones who are the best at being creative. So they're coming up with ideas. They're taking ideas and smashing them together and doing their thing and coming up with new thoughts or uncovering old thoughts. Like, it's not a mainstream person that's going to be out digging around in the writings of like Bertrand de Juvenel. Like, that's not a normal thing that a normal person does. So by default, it's going to be yeah, sorry, Cooper, hate to break it to you. It's not going to be a thing for this. The thing that happens on the fringes, and then it gets brought up through filtering mechanisms closer and closer to the heart of society. This is part of the power of, you see, Tucker Carlson and the position that he's taken, regardless of what his actual end is, what his whether he's a white hat or whatever, I don't care really. Like, what's interesting is that he's someone very close to the mainstream who's also very close to the fringe. This is a very powerful symbolic position. It's an archetype. It's a very powerful archetype. The guy who can unite the fringe and the center. Where was I going with that? So the ideas begin on the fringe. You have the dissident right sort of dorks out there doing their digging and coming up with their ideas and everything, and then they leak into the mainstream gradually.
Theorizing.
Yeah, theorizing. The theory cells.
Lots of O's.
Yeah, theorizing. And so these are the guys that like to pass themselves off as being like the most, we'll say the jokes around being an alpha, like Nick Adams' entire Twitter account, how he's like this like completely lacking in self-awareness character who just advertises himself as an alpha male. Part of the reason this is funny is because it's poking fun at these sorts of guys. The guys who are like, actually, I'm the most alpha. No, I'm the most Chad. These things become cringy after a while, but they start out there. Things like based and trad and all these sorts of things, they begin on these fringes among these guys, and these guys distance themselves from it as soon as it gets too polluted by the normies. So these are the guys who see themselves as like the most radically right-wing guys. They're like the ones who think they're like proudly championing the fact that they're a fascist and all this stuff, which cool, whatever. I don't care. But they're the ones who fancy themselves that way. They're the ones who see themselves in these really cool, like hyper masculine alpha ways. And
Longhouse.
the Longhouse. Yeah, man, you guys are bugging in the chat tonight. Okay, buffering issues on YouTube. I assume that's not an issue. Twitter audio is borked. All right, well,
It's good. It's good.
Sorry if it's bad on Twitter. You can come here.
No, it's fine.
Okay. So an example of this is, I mentioned Andrew Tate. So Andrew Tate is kind of like it's not that powerful or whatever to observe that Andrew Tate is a dork, but but he's an example of this. He's like the
Cobra.
We live we live in this feminized world, and so the answer to that is to be like the most caricatured opposite of feminist that you can be.
This whole caricatured opposite will come into play later with our target tonight.
Right. We're about to pull up our target tonight. This caricatured opposite, and what our targeted person we're talking about here tonight, I would call him he'd basically be like the Andrew Tate of the theory cells, the Andrew Tate of like the self-styled intellectual superior side of the dissident right wing. If you think of like the dissident right wing as like a big group of guys, you have the guys who are on like the meathead alpha bro side of the spectrum, which would be like Andrew Tate would be the king of them. And then you have the guys who are on the opposite side of the spectrum who are like the complete nerd version of that. So this guy would be kind of like the nerd version of Andrew Tate in this particular sense.
BAP would be in the middle.
Yeah. So this thing that they're doing, I'm just going to pull it up here. We'll quit beating around the bush, and we will just
we're teasing. We're edging you tonight.
Yeah. So 0 HP Lovecraft. Zoom
guy.
this in so you guys can see it better. So he tweeted, "Rad femmes and trads have formed an unholy alliance over how much they hate porn. And this has convinced me that porn is a net good for society." What he's doing here is the Andrew Tate version of being like a theory cell. He's like the nerd version of Andrew Tate, where he's selling you this message he has to sell you is that he hates women. And he'll proudly say it. He proudly says he hates women. He explicitly wants things that are bad for women. And because he hates women, he reasons the opposite is to be to be openly, actually definitionally misogynistic and to be proud of it. The problem with this is that this is exceptionally gay.
Yeah.
This is incredibly gay. This isn't like, oh, you're being misogynistic. No, it's like you're being gay. What single group of men is most commonly associated with hating women? Gay men. Gay men hate women. You had an anecdote that you shared earlier about men in the, you told me about this, Cooper, about men in the like fashion industry, the gay men in the fashion industry, and their antipathy for women and how it shows. Do you remember what that was?
Don't quote me on this. I think this was years ago. I was listening to Gavin McInnes talk about, I believe his wife was in the fashion industry in New York. And he was relating a story about how they would never say this publicly, but in like all their like gay little cocktail orgies or whatever, they'll talk about openly how they intentionally will design clothing that is like degrading and painful for women to wear. And this is why supermodels always look like they're being tortured. The same thing applies to like perfumes and stuff. I remember that other gay guy, Jack the perfume nationalist, also relating similar stories in the perfume industry. The gay men coming up with like degrading scent names and appalling scents for women to wear.
Right.
because
Like
they think it's funny.
yeah, and this is like a meme. It's like a stereotype of gay men. I mean, it's kind of obvious why gay men would hate women because it's competition, and often like hating women is often a motivating factor in. Guess I should probably be careful to try to keep us on YouTube here, not give away the plot too much. Which the reason I want to use like code terms and kind of talk around these issues a little bit and not just immediately get the YouTube ban hammer is not because I want to be kosher. It's because I'm lazy. I don't want to have to try to grow a platform other than YouTube. It's much easier to grow a platform on YouTube than it is on fucking like Rumble or Odyssey or whatever. I don't want to have to deal with that bullshit. So I just want to be smart enough about the way we go about talking about these things that we can actually openly have these conversations on this platform. So gay men, like gay men having strong antipathy toward women is a total meme. And that's what this is. Going so far in he's trapped in this dialectic. He's trapping himself in this dialectic where he says he identifies this phenomenon of the longhouse, which is, if you know what the longhouse is, essentially it's the idea that we're being run by the den mother, that there's like this den mother in our psychology that's governing us and constraining the way we behave. It's something that's been mediated through HR departments and academia. And it's kind of like the voice or the spirit of the collective society that tries to keep anybody from doing anything that's too risky or surprising or uncomfortable. And like, it's true. Like there is a longhouse. I'm going to do this while we talk here. So like the longhouse is a real thing. They're seeing this. Someone like Zero HP here encounters the longhouse and decides that the way to combat the longhouse is to use its methods against it somehow. There's
just like set yourself up in a dialectical sort of relationship with the longhouse. You're not like providing it's lib is what it is. Basically it's lib. You're not taking any kind of like or making any kind of like positive. You're not constructing like a positive worldview or making positive claims. You're just like, I'm anti that.
Right.
That's the enemy.
It's a negative identity, this is the exact same thing that's gay about libertarians. This is what libertarians do. Yep. They fashion their entire identity around a negation. That's what this is. He has another one here. He said, so sick of the take that you should stop using porn because it hurts women. You should stop using porn because it hurts you, a man. The fact that it hurts women is its only upside. Now, obviously, part of this here is the communication technique that people use in these types of circles where they deliberately say the thing that's really provocative, and it's partially performative just to sort of filter out the people who are going to pearl clutch about it. So you do the thing, and it's intentionally provocative and kind of performative. And if you were really pressed on it, you wouldn't actually pin yourself to this, believing that the fact that it hurts women is its only upside. You wouldn't actually believe that until people start pressing you on it. And then you're like, no, actually, I do believe this. Because at the end of the day, what you're doing is posting on social media. And there's no oomph to anything that happens. You've deliberately set up your OPSEC such that nobody can ever actually get to you. So you never have to actually put skin behind the message. You can just say it. You can say it as loudly and proudly as you want, and there's no cost to it. Because it's not real. In this way, there's a huge section of the right-wing dissident thought sphere, whatever you want to call it, if you affiliate with it or whatever, that whole thing, everyone kind of knows what it is, but it's whatever, this right-wing dissident network. A whole bunch of guys are out here just doing this. They're just masturbating into the ether. There's nothing like real or incarnational or tangible about what they're saying. They're just taking a dialectic negative to whatever other thing they dislike and LARPing. Okay, what are you laughing about?
Tatiana says, Matt and Cooper, I love the last few shows you've done. Just on point. I've been recommending you to people in my church. Please don't do that.
Oh, no.
Don't do that. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
My priest is gonna see this. Oh no.
Yeah. Well, you know, maybe it's going to go to the right people. Yeah, I see you stopped licking that darn spoon. That's why you were licking the spoon and looking really creepy at me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tatiana. Appreciate it. I mean, it seems crazy that I have to say this, but liking women and wanting good things for women and wanting women is not gay. It's actually very masculine and manly to care about women and to want to provide for them and protect them. That's a very masculine impulse. You got to question the motivations of someone who would want to try to sell that to you as something to be ashamed of. Those motivations are very subversive, very mercantile, you might say. The ideology, the message that he's trying to sell with this thing, again, recognizing that half of this is just LARP so that you don't actually, if somebody pins you on it, then you actually don't have to stand by what you said. You can kind of detach yourself from it and just make fun of them for taking it seriously, but then still take it, but then actually be serious about it at the same time. This kind of double-minded approach. It's very much the behavior of, here's where I have to censor myself for the platform. It's very much the behavior of, maybe you might say, like a bent Khazarian. If you catch the drift there. Like a big-nosed Flaggett. This is very much the behavior of someone like Jack Murphy. This guy couldn't have more contempt for someone than Jack Murphy. And you know why? Because they're competing for the same market share. They're just taking opposite sides of the approach. This guy's going to tell you to go watch the porn. Jack Murphy's going to produce the porn. They're cooperating together to provide you this incredibly gay Jewish ideology. And they're selling it under the auspices of being like super based, being masculine. This is like pro man content.
So this is where we get our word for the night, our new word. This is where it comes from. We're mashing together Merchant American.
Merchant American. That's good.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
We're mashing together the impotence. So eunuch and the
The
goonuch.
degeneracy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Goonuch.
This is a goonuch.
Isn't that brilliant?
This is a goonuch. 0 HP Lovecraft. Here is being a goonuch.
Please go call him a goonuch. Be the reply guy that calls him goonuch.
Get all
Make this a
all
meme.
the reply guys to brigade it. He's just like, what the fuck is this goonuch?
Don't actually do that.
Yeah. The gooning, so I saw someone earlier, I don't know if someone answered them. Someone earlier said, what is gooning? Gooning is just, if you imagine a gooner is the guy that's like slack-jawed and dead-eyed and
Tongue
just whacking it. That's a gooner. A gooner is like a porn brain. And then a eunuch is someone who's impotent. Because ultimately, his message here, this message that he just wants to hurt women, this is a message of impotence. It's limp-wristed. It's incredibly gay. Stephen David, it's spelled Goonuch. If you're going to use our neologism, you have to spell it correctly. Goonuch. Goonuch. It's a gooning eunuch. This is something that's this is a very clear archetype. This is the Grima Wormtongue archetype. Yep. That's the goonuch. What these guys are is basically like they're like the spiritual bedfellows of Yuval Harari.
Yeah.
That's what these guys are selling you. These guys are selling you nihilism. Any man who's telling you that the problem with our gynocentrism, the way to solve the gynocentrism of the culture is to like hate women. Like, what do you think you're like Genghis Khan? And like the way that you're going to go like rape your way through society, and that's what's going to build the future great empire? Are you how touched do you have to be to think that this is somehow like really cool and masculine or realistic or gritty or whatever you want to frame it as? No, this is gay. This is just homosexuality masquerading as something other than homosexuality.
It's like spiritual homosexuality.
Yes. Yes, getting you to think this way is basically just training you to get in the pods and eat the bugs. These guys are like affiliates. Someone selling you this message. Andrew Tate, Zero HP Lovecraft, any of these other guys who are selling you this message of like male resentment and like fuck women and like this whole swath of men that are trying to sell themselves as like these alpha chads. They're basically like affiliate partners for Yuval Harari.
And this plays out in more ways than just, it's not just like sex or sexual dynamics or things like that, dating, all of that. Like the like, how do I say this? This behavior, this way of thinking is fundamentally like onanistic and masturbatory. Mm-hmm. And so it plays out in like the ideological or in the thought space as well. So that's why you get all these, that's where the theory cells, that's where they come from. This is like the animating spirit. Mm-hmm. They're just like masturbating intellectually.
Mm-hmm. It's it's
really gay.
Like if you think about, so let's do a quick trip back to the Garden of Eden. Man is created. Man is created to be, hold on just a sec. Someone calling me. Let me send a text here real quick to... Yeah, that'd be funny.
I also just got a phone call from a number I don't recognize, so spooky.
Okay. So we go back to Garden of Eden. So man is created. Man is given the role of naming the animals. Naming the animals in a symbolic sense it's like instituting order. It's putting things in order, defining things, creating the definitions, establishing boundaries. So it's not literally just like saying your name is Tiger and your name is Koala, and it's there's an actual like a deeper meaning to that. But then man is alone. Man needs a helpmeet. And the word that's translated helpmeet is something like constructive adversary. So the idea of the woman being created is that the woman is there to be a constructive adversary for the man. This is Eve's role. She's a constructive adversary to Adam, because Adam's responsibility is to establish order, which is a creative, emergent process. It's like establishing the rules for how things are operating, which is something that works. It's flexible. It's adaptive. This is the creative thing. This is the responsibility of the masculine spirit, to be creative and productive, to be producing, putting things out into the world and putting them in order within the world to the glory of God. The woman's responsibility is to be like a mirror for the man, so that the man has a feedback mechanism for all the work that he's doing. The woman is supposed to listen to creation and reflect back to him, report back to him how the creation is doing. Here's how things are going. You could see this meme play out in, male-female relationships all over the place once you start looking for it. But the most common one would be, the woman is the one who's getting all the town gossip and everything. And then she comes back and she tells her husband what's going on. Her husband, the one who's like running the city or whatever. The woman goes, she's the most well-connected person. She hears all the gossip, and then she goes and she tells her husband and then informs the way that he rules and governs. And so each other woman, her responsibility is to get her little bit of gossip to the woman at the top, to the wife of the king or wife of the nobleman or whatever it is. This is the way that the masculine and feminine identities fit together and cooperate together. And it's with the masculine identity and the feminine identity put together that produces a child. And now you have the fundamental unit of society, the family. The man, the woman, and their seed. This is the fundamental unit of society. Now, how are you supposed to get, for all these people who decry like the degeneracy of the age, and really this is all of the secular nihilist atheist tendencies among the right-wing commentariat. You can expand this out to guys like Cernovich and who are some other ones? I can't think of any others off the top of my head right now. Some of them are actually Jews. Some of them are not. Some of them are gay. Some of them are not. Some of them are gay Jews. Some of them are not. You may notice some patterns within all of that. But if you have a guy who's like a right-wing commentator and he's not operating from an explicitly Christian perspective, you can't trust what he's producing. Because ultimately at the heart, at the root, don't follow the guy. Because at the root of what he's saying, you're going to find this gay Jewish stuff. That's going to be the heart of it. So these guys will sell themselves as pro-nation, pro like we need to have our own people, pro their own ethnicity, pro-family. And these things are all great. I have no problem with any of those things. The problem is you don't get any of those things without women, without taking care of women. You can't have an antagonistic, abusive relationship with women and get a healthy, stable, well-functioning society. The idea that you can is pagan, nihilist bullshit.
And we live in a very pagan era. I have a theory as an aside about the rise of female promiscuity in a symbolic sense being kind of their longing for a child that men are not giving them. But maybe that's a discussion for another time.
No, I think that actually is perfect for right now. Because like you see, they've got you have the pickup artist community who were really the ones to begin propagating this explicit, like openly antagonistic relationship with women. And they have this notion of, women don't have agency. In other words, meaning that like women don't have independent thought. They're not capable of independent thought. They're not capable of reasoning from themselves as an independent person. They always operate contextually, relationally. And there's a lot of truth to that. But leaving aside whether or not it is true, if it is true that women don't have agency, if you're complaining about the structure of the society, your beef is not with women. According to the rules of your own system, your beef can't be with women. They don't have any agency. They're just passively along for the ride. Your beef is with the men who are subverting the women. Speaking of Grim Worm Talk.
Or also yourself. Also yourself. Yeah, this is just impotence. That's all this is.
Because this whole like antipathy toward women is a perpetuation of that problem. The problem is that you have weak men who, instead of rising to the occasion and taking responsibility for themselves and committing to creating and producing a stable, disciplined order, they sit around and blame women for their problems. There's a particular archetype of man.
Gay.
Yeah, there's a particular archetype of man that you could probably picture this as I describe it, where you have like a war and all the men are going to go away to war and the women are staying home. You have the women and the children and like the young boys who are going to stay home. And there's certain men who actually go out of their way to ensure that they're not going to go to war. They might even do something crazy like cut off their hand or something like that. But then those guys, they keep themselves from going to war. They stay home. All the men, all the women, their husbands go away to war. And then you get the guy. What sort of character is the guy who stays behind and talks about the war, commentates on the war, has opinions about the war? But he's not there actually fighting the war. He's back in the safety of his own home, making moves on the women. This is a very recognizable archetype. And I think that this is very much in that archetype. The online theory cell, is this a, Jonathan Lesson said they're called Jodies. Is that an actual term for the thing I'm describing? Never heard that before. Jodies.
Highlight that most recent comment by Jason.
Admitting to be owned by folks with no agency isn't the alpha stance they think it is. Yeah. Yeah, right. That's the perfect summation of what I was saying. Admitting to being owned by folks with no agency is not an alpha stance. If you don't like a military term, okay. If you don't like the what's the word I'm thinking of here? The gynocentrism of the current system, then sitting online and rage posting about it is not, you're just contributing to it. You're embodied by the exact same spirit.
It's very feminine.
Yes. Because that's what I was going to say. So the woman is the one who's supposed to observe what's going on and then provide the commentary. The men are the ones who go do something about it. The women are the ones who sit back and just commentate. The women are like, by definition, the peanut gallery. They're kind of supposed to be the peanut gallery because then the men are supposed to listen to the women and that gives them a second perspective on what's happening. And then they're able to like triangulate and work three-dimensionally to solve the problem because they've got an outside perspective. So the men are supposed to listen to the women. It's not gay to listen to women. It might be hard for some of you guys sometimes, but it's not gay to listen to women. It's actually a fundamental responsibility of being a man. You have to listen to women. Because when you listen to the women, they'll tell you what they're seeing. They'll tell you what's going on. You can hear it. And then you can filter it through your vastly superior male brain and determine what needs to be done to fix the problem. So if you're just sitting on the sidelines and all you do is commentate, you're like just a professional commentator who doesn't do anything else. You're known for your commentary. And it's like, what else does this guy do? Oh, he gets contracts to talk about stuff. That's very gay. Just getting contracts to talk about stuff. Now, if you're someone who's interesting, who's doing a lot of interesting things, and you bring a lot of wisdom to the table, then it's very good to have you commentate. But if you're just someone who kind of just sits there and just is like a talking head giving your opinion about stuff, and that's all you're doing, this is like spiritual masturbation. It falls under the category of onanism, just spilling your seed on the ground. You're not actually changing anything. You're just sitting there commentating about it. And this is wildly prolific throughout the whole, whether you're libertarian, fascist, socialist, capitalist, whatever you want to identify yourself as. There's a whole big industry of people just sitting around talking themselves in a circle. And I get the Zoomers, so I fully recognize the irony of me saying this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm participating in that.
I was just about to point that out.
I'm participating in a self-aware way to demonstrate it. If you're just sitting here and you're just providing commentary, Whether you have a show and a platform where you talk on it to multiple people, or if you're just sitting there typing on your phone, this isn't activism. You aren't accomplishing anything. You're not changing anything. All you're doing is just shooting your seed out into the wind. If you get yourself to the point where you have a lot of wealth, power, and influence, when you have that wealth, power, and influence, then you can do this sort of thing in a targeted way, in a targeted, productive way. Like, for example, one of our favorite guys to listen to is a guy named Alex Hormozy. He does lots of commentating. He talks about lots of stuff. He goes and does interviews. He produces a lot of his own content. A lot of his educational. I'm not saying that anybody who talks publicly for a living is participating in this. I'm talking about a particular brand. The people who do this and they mistake them doing this for like activism, essentially. They think that they're actually changing the world by doing this. If you're doing this to be entertaining, to be educational, if you're doing it to generate an audience to sell to, these are all perfectly legitimate reasons to be involved in public commentary. But if you're doing it thinking that the thing you're actually accomplishing is like moving the world in the direction that you want it to, simply by commenting on it and not backing up your commentary with your actual actions in the world, then it's like rhetorical onanism. You're just shooting sperm in the ground, man. We're still like less than an hour. Is there anything we talked about earlier that we haven't touched on yet?
A lot of protein.
These are all your ideas. I mean,
yeah, all my great ideas.
Yeah, that's where I get all my good ideas, is just stealing yours. So if there's anything I missed, you got to let us know.
A lot of protein in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
From all the seed being spilled.
Yeah. Can make some good face wash. Xavier says that he loves our seed. I do want to emphasize that I kind of was saying it before, but so Emmanuel says, I will not get socially pressured to stop my lame joke comments. There's kind of a vibe that I miss from the old internet, where you would just get like a niche group of people that would just kind of sit around and just have fun and talk and joke, and there was no purpose to it. It didn't feel like it had to be going anywhere or doing anything. It's just people just enjoying each other's company and like uniting around some autistic interest. And this is ironic because I don't really embody this spirit when I come on and do the show, but I kind of miss that, like being able to just not have to feel like you're going anywhere. Yeah, just dudes being bros, just hanging out and BSing. This is why I have no problem at all with sports. In fact, I love sports. I have my group of friends that I talk sports with, and that's all that we talk about. We rarely get into anything else. We just talk about sports. Because it's good to have hobbies. It's good to have timeless hobbies that you can just get involved in. Not everything has to be changing the world at all times. It's all right for people to just enjoy things. The golden age of not being able to grift, and it was simply a digital community. Yeah. And I think we're kind of moving back in that direction. You're like, originally the internet was formed of a bunch of little isolated, disconnected communities. And then everything got pulled into the public square. And then everyone went back into their little isolated, disconnected communities. So now we have the public square and the isolated, disconnected communities. It's an interesting thought. No delusion of online community to replace real life interactions. Yeah. 2-bit. Okay, this is what I wanted to highlight. There are folks on the dissident right who know that liberalism is the problem, and those who say it is. What do you mean by that, Jason? I think I agree with you. I'm curious to see where we were going with that. While we're waiting for him to reply, I'll just mention that this is this like taking a negative position where you like define your identity by being opposed to the thing that you're mad about.
Yep.
So like in this case, it's women. We're mad about women. We don't like the way that the society serves women and centers all of their interests and all of this sort of thing. This is just like a mirror image, or maybe like a photo negative of the people on the flip side who are like, we hate the patriarchy. You know, patriarchy is even bad for you too. I think Based Fat Chad mentioned that. He said, "This is like the people that are saying the patriarchy is bad for men too. You're just trapping yourself in a dialectic. You can't form your worldview around a negative proposition and expect to have an incarnational reality.
Yep.
You can't live in accordance with a negative proposition. This is the problem with the libertarians. This is the problem with the communists. This is the problem with, at least with the communists, they actually like had some, they weren't afraid to like,
They had their moment.
Yeah. They put their skin in the game and they like actually tried to do some stuff and it all sucked. But like, hey, at least they actually gave it a good old college try. Then you get like the libertarians who like their moment is like Reno or something, and they're like, I think their moment was when they had to crowdfund the guy's plane ticket so that he could get back from Reno because he used his rent money to go to the convention.
I'll see you in Reno.
But these are just different manifestations of liberalism. This is the same fucking zombies just cropping up all over the place. This ostensibly anti-liberal dude, in trying so hard to show just how not liberal he is just embodying the soul of liberalism.
Yeah, there's a good example of that. Like I was listening to frickin' Vosh of all people, who's a literal communist. And he was commentating at one point about like the no-fap guys and the anti-porn guys. And he was like, you see, obviously he supports porn. He thinks it's great. And he thinks all the right-wingers who dislike porn, the only reason they dislike it is because they hate women. So he's like, no, I like porn because I'm not misogynist. And then you have someone like Zero HP who's like, I like porn because I am misogynist. Like he's just taking the other side of it.
Yes.
It's like he's making himself a meme.
Mm-hmm. This is very Zoomer too. It's very like this is they're playing off this phenomenon that has developed in these internet communities where for the sake of memeing, you'll take like some obviously absurd position and plant your stake on it and just inhabit it. But then it's like, as you LARP as this for long enough, then you actually start believing it, which really that's how things work. This is how beliefs work. You stake out a position, you live as if that position is true, and then you'll come to believe that position. This is the way the mind works.
It's the point of the catechumenate.
Yes. So in this case here, there's this double-minded thing I was mentioning earlier where it's like you might start out as, with your little buddies talk. I guarantee you that early on, it might have been 10 or 15 years ago, he or someone he was around played around with this idea. It was probably more recently than that, but it was at some point in the past where they're just like, oh yeah, actually we hate women. And actually porn is good because it hurts women. This is humor. Now, if you did that in an ironic way, it would be humorous. And the reason it would be humorous is because the reality of somebody actually adopting that position would be so retarded that you would laugh at it. And so then he's going and he's like, hey, this is actually me. Ha ha ha, isn't it funny? There's like levels of meta and irony here that just kind of like the point here is that you can't pin anything down. And this is an explicit feature. This isn't a bug. This is a feature that you get to kind of LARP as whatever you want, but you never actually have to put any skin in a game. You don't have to put skin behind your words. You can just say them and you can just adopt them and change. Like, I'm not saying this is the case with him, just in general. There would be no way to know if he didn't like decide to completely change the way he viewed the world or something and started another completely anonymous account and ran it and ran both of these accounts at the same time and believed something completely different than either of those two. There's nothing real about it. Build your worldview around, or even just incorporate the idea of being explicitly hostile to women. Live your life that way and see where you wind up.
Maidenless.
Live your life as an angry gay man and see how it feels. He's like a version of like a tranny. Oh, I probably shouldn't have said that word. I'm talking about cars. You know, like the tranny in my Ford F-150. It's great. It works really well. Self-awaring so hard you become a sophist.
Is troon, is that acceptable?
I don't know. We'll have to find out. We're gonna have to find out what part of this, like if this video gets flagged or if we have to like cut some part of it out or something.
Just go down the list of racial slurs and like
say them all.
See which ones are allowed. Yeah. Or what are we allowed to say now?
Yeah,
things seem to be opening up a bit.
That'd be kind of funny to put to just have a video that's literally just you saying every slur you can think of, and you upload it and you wait for it to get flagged and you pull one off and you upload it again, you wait for it to get flagged, you pull one off, you just keep doing that and narrow down and figure out exactly which ones are okay.
You could just like you could like upload a bootlegged copy of Gran Torino, and that'll see what sticks.
Yeah. See if you can actually get away with saying some of that stuff on here again. Cable here said, y'all just convinced me that libertarians are more gay than commies. 100%. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad we got this through to you now because you've gone too long without this recognition.
Dude, it's been like 2.5 years or something.
Yeah.
Still haven't figured this out.
Yeah. So the GOONUCHS. The GOONUCHS are these guys, and the reason that this is like a eunuch archetype is because it's not going to produce any life. It's that simple. There's nothing incarnational about this. You can live the life of someone who hates women, or someone who, I'll be specific with my terminology, of someone who wants to do things, who decides the things he wants to do based on how much they hurt women. You can live that life and you're not going to be happy. It's going to make you a very miserable, lonely person. You can cope to me till you're blue in the face about how great it is, and I'm not going to believe a single bit of it because that's not what you were created for. It's self-terminating.
Mm-hmm.
It's like genetically self-terminating. Unless you want to convince me
it's
that
sterile.
It's sterile. Unless you want to convince me that you're Genghis Khan and you're just going to spread your seed by force, which, okay, like good luck with that. I'm sure there's plenty of guys who are wispy little guys rotting away in jail who saw themselves as Genghis Khan running around forcing themselves on women. It's just, it's a pathetic anti-masculine perspective. And it's completely sterile. So don't buy what these, whether it's in this form or in the more, I don't know, the less subversive form. This is the real subversive form.
Mm-hmm.
This is the real merchant American form. The more manly way to go about this is to do it the Andrew Tate way. It's still pretty gay, but at least you're not at least you're not doing this while you're saying it, because that's what this is.
They've just got they've got a third hand on the tip of their peener, so they can get down there and grovel all the time. So they can still click with one hand.
Yeah. I'm imagining a skit. Just sitting there, like, silently, like, clicking, and you just see a hand come up between your legs periodically and, like, reaching around on the desk. Genghis keyboard. That's great. Instead of a keyboard warrior, it's a Genghis keyboard. So do us a favor. When you see guys like this, when you see guys who are selling this, they sell themselves as right-wing guys, whether it's trad or base or whatever. Like, these terms are becoming cringe because the normies have used them too much, and I just made a boomer's head explode. These these guys who sell themselves as right-wingers, but at the heart of their worldview is just nihilism, just complete sophistry, and it's like sophistry and self-absorbed nihilism at the same time. It's just it's completely incoherent and vacuous. When you see these guys, you got to call them out. These guys are goonics, and we're not going to be having any goonicry taking over the conversation in our circles. It's time to actually have constructive conversations about positive things that you can do with your actual body in the actual world to make a positive impact to resolve some of these kinds of problems. The society is not just going to spring up by itself organically out of the ashes of one that's collapsing. It takes people actually proactively creating it. And in order to create a sustainable, competent society where you can actually do legitimate scientific research, where you can explore, where the masculine spirit can be unbounded. To actually have that, you have to have a stable society, which means you have to have the most rudimentary understanding of the basic unit in society, which is one man, one woman, one child. That's the most basic unit. You can add to that unit, but you can't take away from it. I think that's all I got. Oh, 2-Bit responded. Reach up and grab a tissue off the table and disappear back under the table. Yeah. Zoop. Do you remember the Family Guy episode where they do the one of the alien and like Alien from the Alien movie, and comes out and it's like the big alien, and he opens his mouth and the little tiny mouth comes out, and he's like, I'm gonna eat you with my little mouth too, and then he goes zoop, and he sucks it back in. I'm imagining using that sound effect for like reaching up, the hand like reaches up, grabs a Kleenex, and it's like zoop. Okay, so 2-Bit had said there are folks in the dissident right who know that liberalism is the problem and those who say it is. And I asked him to clarify. And he said a lot of folks are only against what they think is the bad liberalism, but want to keep the good liberalism. Quotes on both of those. There is no good or bad liberalism. It is fundamentally flawed. Yeah. This is actually, that's perfect. It's flawed and it needs to go in all its forms, whether fascism, communism, libertarianism, feminism, capitalism, whatever ism you want to tag on. And even the ones that are some variant of liberalism, but they get clever and they try to just not have an ism on it, and they say, oh, it's not liberalism. No, all of these are all variants of liberalism. They're all built around this negative proposition around the self, where the self is a negative proposition. It's not a positive, incarnational self through whom we know ourselves. It's an empty, vacant self that's just generic, that can just have traits pasted onto it. This is the heart of liberalism, and it leaks out all over the place. It's definitely a merchant American innovation. There's a reason for that. So anybody who's selling you some variant of liberalism is ultimately, at the end of the day, doing marketing for merchant Americans. I'll put it that way. 2-Bit also said, liberalism is the only thing in creation that gets away with Well, it has its problems, like mass genocide, but it's the best system we have with absolutely no follow-up or introspection. Yeah. Yeah, it's the water that we're swimming in. And people just can't conceive otherwise. That's why you've had even ostensibly intelligent, well-read, high IQ individuals like our example Goonuk today. Even they fall into this exact same trap. They think they see themselves as so innovative and so clever. And I do agree that he's innovative and clever. I've loved reading his writing. I think he has a lot of really interesting thoughts and a lot of really interesting analyses. But at the end of the day, when this sort of thing just reveals the actual spirit that drives what he's saying and doing, and it's the spirit of nihilism. It's not just nihilism. I think I need to go back and read again, but I think this would fall under the category of the nihilism of destruction that Father Seraphim Rose talked about in nihilism. That's this spirit. The spirit that's become explicitly antisocial. I know I can hear the like being antisocial is actually good because society is something constructed by women. No, you moron. It's not constructed by women. It's preserved by women. It's constructed by men. If you're wanting to construct a new society, you're going to need women to preserve it because that's what they do. If they're preserving the wrong kind of society, that's because you suck. It's not because they suck.
Yes.
They'll be better when you're better. It starts with you. This is the masculine responsibility, is to take responsibility. You take responsibility for the way things are. And if you haven't done that for yourself, you have to do that for yourself. Once you've done it for yourself, then you can do it for your family. Once you've done it for your family, then you can do it for your community. Once you've done it for your community, then you can do it for other people outside that. This is the way that it scales. And the more that you do this, the more you accumulate the so-called wealth, power, and influence that is accorded to someone who's at the top of a tribe, a patriarch. You have to become the patriarch. And you don't become the patriarch by shooting yourself in the balls before you even get off the ground. You have to take responsibility. You take responsibility for your own role in creating the shitty world that you don't want to live in. Once you've done that, then you can start creating a better world. And that better world is going to have to operate according to principles of reality, like it's not gay to want women if you're a man.
Let's see. Jason says, my open question to myself and all continues to be, would you endorse a system that would disenfranchise you but would be a boon for your grandchildren? Most can't even approach this question honestly. Oh yeah, in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's a hard question for people of previous generations, but speaking as the chief Zoomer, like I wake up every day, waiting, just kind of waiting for my life to get better, and it just doesn't. So if I knew that it would be better for my grandkids, well, it's not getting better for me, so okay.
Mm-hmm.
At least it will be for them.
When you say disenfranchised, do you mean that in strictly in the voting sense? Or are you talking like
I don't
disenfranchise you as in like I'm asking Jason, do you mean like disenfranchise you as in like remove your ability to own property? Or like what do you what do you mean?
That's already not gonna happen for me, dude.
Yeah, right. Yeah. In either case, I don't think, like definitely. What's the saying that a society of strong men is one in which something about planting trees.
They know they won't
sit under the shadow
or whatever.
Yeah. Planting trees that you'll never sit under the shade, sit in the shade of. Fucking butchered that.
I'm thinking we should start like a weekly segment called the Goonuk Report.
Yeah.
Where we take our weekly Goonuchs.
Yeah. Yes, this is something you guys can do. This is how you guys can help us. You can give us submissions for the Goonuk support. Goonuk report, rather.
We'll make a channel in the Discord for the GOONUCHS.
Yeah. You can join the Discord, subscribestar.com/kingpilled. For now, that's how you're going to access it. We're going to have the Kingpilled site up here before too long, and then it's going to be a different process to get in. And it's going to, if you get in now, then you'll get everything later. So yeah, subscribestar.com/kingpilled. Go sign up for the Discord. We'll have a channel in there for the GOONUCH report. And you can tag us on Twitter, at Real Kingpilled for me, at Cooper Brooks for Cooper here. You can tag us, and if you see a GOONUCH out in the wild, then alert us. We'll come up with maybe we need to have like a GOONUCH meme that like you send a GOONUCH meme to someone, and that's like the GOONUCH bat signal. You're identifying that there's a GOONUCH here. Okay, Xavier responded and he said he'd asked, how does one translate that to scaling pragmatically? And I asked him to elaborate. He said, one takes responsibility for oneself in terms of diet and exercise, but how to get your, say, spouse or friends to do the same, since we can't force others to do anything.
If you do it, if you just do it and you do it faithfully and consistently, it'll happen.
Mm-hmm. Right. You'll see it. Like, I remember Cooper telling me, I don't know, it was probably a year ago, he'd started getting into orthodoxy, and he just had people like family members and friends and stuff just kind of coming out of the woodwork who were like, hey, what's this orthodoxy thing that you're into? Like, what's going on? And so he would just tell them. And it's kind of the same thing. It's like, if you start working out, pretty soon you're going to start looking better. You're going to have people who ask you why, and you tell them, this is what I'm doing. In a business sense, you start some kind of business, and after a while, someone notices. They're like, man, like you're either, you seem better off, or like, wow, that's a nice house you just moved into, or you're really busy right like lately, or you got this thing you're working on all the time. Like, what's going on? And you can share that with people. Because what I believe is the best praxis for a man right now who's, I don't know, somewhere in the 20 to 35-ish range is, if you let's start first with the guys who aren't married, who don't have a significant other. If you're a single guy, then you need to put your head down and spend the next however long it takes. If it takes 3 years, great. If it takes 10 years, great. If it takes 20 years, great. You need to dedicate that time to figuring out what problem you're best at solving, and then monetize the solving of that problem, and use this to generate the resources that you need to make yourself stable and secure, so that you can then support a family. You can qualify. The reason I'm making this as like vague as possible, I'm not putting specifics on it, is because it's going to depend on you. At what point you feel stable and secure is going to depend on you. What constitutes solving a problem for someone is going to depend on you. What constitutes monetization is going to depend on you. Each circumstance is going to be a little different, but I'm saying broad strokes. Figure out a problem, figure out the one that you're the best at solving. Market yourself doing that, solve that problem for people. It's best if you can do it for free at first, especially if you can figure out how to solve a problem that leads to another problem. So if somebody comes to you to solve their problem, you solve the problem for free, and them getting that problem solved reveals to them that they have bigger problems that they need solved. Then you can sell yourself to solve those bigger problems for them. This is how you provide value in a positive sum sense, where you and that other person leave that interaction or persist in that interaction in a way that benefits both of you. This is creation. You're creating value in this way. You get compensated for solving their problem.
It's way better to trade value for money than it is time for money.
Yes. Because value you can scale.
Yeah. Time, you can work more hours, but that, there's a ceiling there.
Right. So if you can get to where you're selling your value for money, then you can scale that up. Now if you're a guy who already has a family and you're feeling this way, perhaps if you're in a desperate situation, if you're in a really bad spot, then you're basically like the guy who's single. You need to drop everything and focus on solving that problem. Once you've done that, or if you're a guy who is further along, where you have stability, you have security, maybe your problem is more like boredom or not sure where to invest your time and money. You have the time, you have the money, but you don't know what to do with it. You're the one who can go find the guys who are trying to get to the next level and help them get to that point.
You can monetize that.
And you can monetize that. And by
And then
creating these relationships where you're feeding each other, you're creating a sustainable network that you can begin to build a community around of guys that are interdependent among each other, and they're all getting better.
And let's say, I mean, you're trying to find yourself a lady, and you're a slob, and you're out of shape, and you know your hair's thinning, and you breathe through your mouth because you've got a deviated septum or whatever. If you just consistently work out with the proper routine, you can have like the body that you want in probably a year and a half. You can have what you want. And that right there, just being in shape and looking good and taking care of yourself, that'll add like probably if you're graded on a scale of 1 to 10, that'll add 2 points.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to be above average, and that's all you need.
And doing that, it won't just add 2 points on like the attractiveness scale. It'll also probably add 2 points to the intelligence scale because of how much better your brain will operate. You'll be able to think more clearly. You're not going to be as bogged down by brain fog and that sort of thing. It's probably also going to add 2 more points to, what was the other thing I was going to say? There's the attractiveness scale. There's the income scale. It's probably going to add at least 2 points to that because the combination of being more confident, more attractive, and thinking better, you're not going to be able to help but be more productive, which is going to translate to you as increased income. Whether that's income financially or socially. This is an idea that we're going to unpack here in a future episode. Is we're still trying to figure out exactly how we want to structure it and frame it. But basically, that your responsibility as a man is to be doing this very thing: accumulating capital. And that capital can take the form of various different things. We're going to break down what each of those is. But this is your responsibility. This is what, maybe we ironically call it the capitalist perspective. It's not capitalism. It's a very different perspective. But the idea is that you need to be generating value. And that value is going to pay you. And what it pays you back, you have a responsibility to turn around and pay that back in again. Is anybody who's grown a company knows that the best way to scale that company up quickly is to begin generating a return and to invest that return immediately right back in the business. And you'll get exponential growth from that. So that applies in business. It also applies in relationships. It applies in your health. It applies all over the place, the same principle. And this is what we talk about when we mean like having an incarnational worldview. A worldview that's built on the principles of productivity and creativity and reinvesting in yourself to the point where you can invest in your family and then reinvesting in your family to the point where you can invest in your community and reinvesting in your community. And if you get a bunch of men who are all united around this vision, who are all tangibly taking these steps in the real world and also interconnected with one another and supporting each other, investing in each other, providing swapping skills. It's kind of a gay term, but that's a movement. That's an actual movement. Not a bunch of people who are, rage posting on the internet and sharing obscure literary works and trying to get people to read their favorite book. Because if you just have to read my favorite book and then you're going to see the world the way I do and then all the world's problems will be magically solved. This is masturbatory. Don't be masturbatory. Be procreative.
You just gotta read Rothbard, dude.
Yeah. Just read Spangler. Bro, come on, please. Just read Spangler, bro. Sure, read Rothbard. I don't care. Read Spangler. I think it's great. It's great to be educated and edified. But you can't do this at the extent.
That is part of building your capital.
Right, yeah. Because one, we'll give you a sneak peek. One of the capital silos is intellectual capital. So if you're reading, you're accumulating knowledge, not just for the sake of the knowledge in general. There's a place for that. But we're talking like if you're in an acute situation and you're trying to dig yourself out, one of the ways you can do that is by learning something. You just want to make sure that the thing that you're learning is something you can immediately turn around and use to generate value for someone else that you get paid off of. So that then you can provide for a family. Guy or goon? Instead of friend or fed. 2-Bit says, for me, understanding sacrifice and suffering from an Orthodox worldview made the answer easy and honest. Yeah. He's referring to the, would you accept being disenfranchised if it meant that your grandchildren weren't? H.P. Lovecraft, Guy or Goon, sounds like a series. Goy or Goon. Or both.
That's basically what a Goonuk is.
Yeah. Zach Putnam says, would it be a Hegelian dialectic in the sense that the men who want to take away the perceived agency and current supremacy of women by getting their eggs into the tech womb, and women want to take away men's agency by getting their seed into the tech womb, and the synthesis is whoever reigns supreme over the tech womb? That is an interesting thought. I don't know if it would be a Hegelian. I don't know if it would be Hegelian strictly, but let's see. The men who want to take away the perceived agency and current supremacy of women by getting their eggs into the tech womb. Okay, so you have the men on one side who are Okay, I see what he's saying. So he's talking about the like the World Economic Forum, Yuval Harari grift, essentially, is that you get the women so isolated and alone that they submit their eggs to be used for science. And then you get the men who are so isolated and alone.
They're already there. Men are already there, man.
Yes, that they will submit their seed. So you get them, you're basically getting both the men and the women to participate in this sexual charade that has the perceived, it looks like actual sex at the societal level, but it's not. They're both empty. They're both fertile. They're both infertile, rather. They're both sterile, is what I meant.
Sounds like black magic.
Yeah, well, it really is. Like, especially, I mean, look at the intellectual heritage of these people. It's all over the place. You have the one side that's sterilizing the women, or it's not sterilizing the women, it's inducing the women into sterilizing themselves. And then on the flip side, you have the men being induced into sterilizing themselves. So with this worldview, it should be very clear what the Andrew Tate to Zero H.P. Lovecraft Goonuk perspective is doing, like the role that it's playing in all of this. It's playing the role of inducing men into sterilizing themselves. Like it's gay to go to war with women. Like, I don't know how to say this any other way. Going to war with women is pathetic. It's just gay. Who goes to war with women? Like who's like, I'm going to fight girls? What stereotype is this? It's like, once you see it, you can't not see it. Well, Emmanuel said, solve problems that bring other problems. Note to myself, this is not planned obsolescence. No, this isn't planned obsolescence because, that's actually a really interesting thought. It isn't that you are intentionally half solving someone's problem. It's that you can only solve so many problems, and you're best served specializing in a specific kind of problem. That way you can do it as well as possible for as many people as possible. If you try to solve the entire problem, then you're going to get mediocre work that can only be given to a minimal number of people. So you want to start by carving off a problem that's very easy for you to solve for free, where you can solve it once for someone and then replicate it through some kind of leverage, whether it's media or some other form of leverage. So you solve the problem once, and then it proves to them that you can solve the problem for them. And once that problem is solved, they realize, oh, okay, now that I've had this problem solved, it opens up this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. Now I have this trusted expert that I know could solve that problem for me, and it's worth my while to give him money to solve those problems. And that's your business model. So it's not planned obsolescence because you're not like, you're putting a legitimately necessary cap on what you can do so that you can do it for as many people as possible and as well as possible. Okay. Kyle, I was really bummed when I read The Anatomy of the State. My life didn't change for the better immediately. 5 Goonix haven't hit the like. What a Goonic thing to say. Thank you, Emmanuel. Keep that Goonic term going. We want to get people using that. Yeah, hit the like button. Hit the like button and share this show for us if you would. And throw a comment on it. Tell us whatever you want. You could call us Goonix. But the comment really helps with the algorithm, helps get this in front of more people. So the longer that you watch, the more people who like it and the more people who comment on it, it boosts it in the algorithm. So we much appreciate if you guys can do that for us. All right. I think that's about enough. We're over the hour and a half mark. I expected we were going to be around the hour mark, but you guys got even more. We were very, very talkative today. Thank you for being here. Is there anything else we forgot to say? Did I forget anything, Cooper?
Just shilling our stuff.
Shilling, yeah. Real King Pilled on Twitter, Real King Pilled on Instagram, King Pilled, I think, on TikTok. And then Cooper is Cooper Brooks on Twitter. And then, like Cooper mentioned, actually, we'll do the quick shill for the right here at the end, the part that the people will watch the least. We'll do the quick shill for the thing that where we make our money. If you are a guy who is actually feels compelled by what Cooper was saying about being able to get your ideal physique within a year or so, we have a program for you where we can help you do that. That's what we do. It's a fitness and nutrition consulting business where we will help you get that the physique that you're wanting. The people we work with, because we can relate to them the best, is Christian dads over 25. If you're a Christian dad, you're over 25, and you don't like your physique, you're unhappy with either the way you look or the way you feel, you know that you want to be stronger, you know that you want to be better for your kids, more attractive to your wife, feel better, be more productive during the day, but maybe you don't have time for the gym. You don't have time for the gym, or you're afraid of getting hurt, or it just seems like too much work, or you just need someone to get you off the couch and kick your ass to do it. That's where we come in. We will fill the need of the person who kicks your ass and tells you how to do it to make sure you don't get hurt and motivates you to get it done and teaches you how to do it in the most efficient possible way. It takes less than 30 minutes a week. We've had tremendous results so far. We've got a group of guys who are already on this program, and we literally haven't had like a negative experience yet. Every single guy who's gone through it has noticed positive change and been really excited about it.
Assuming they do it.
Yeah, that's why I said every single guy who's gone through it. There's some who decided not to, but that was for separate reasons. Anyways, if that's of interest to you guys, then there's a link in the description on the video here. There'll be a link in if you're listening to this on the podcast form, there'll be a link. You can schedule a call with yours truly, and we'll see if you're a good fit and describe the program in more detail to you there. So you can go do that, schedule that appointment. We'd love to talk to you and help you either get less fat or get more chunk, one of the two. See you later, guys.